You're listening to the Fast F1 Podcast. Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the Fast F1 Podcast with me, Danny Kane.
And I'm Eddie Meteye-O'Kane.
And today we are doing a triple header roundup because we've been super busy with stuff outside of F1 and haven't been able to record for the last few races. So today will be a bit of a summary of the Grand Prix at Austin, Texas, the Grand Prix in Mexico City, and the Grand Prix at São Paulo. So what overall did you think of the triple header? Was it exciting?
It was amazing. All of the races were really good. Some of the best this season. All three of them were. It was amazing.
Yeah, and capped off by a rainy São Paulo Grand Prix that had quite a lot of incidents and accidents and lots of action throughout.
Yes, and a shock podium that we'll get to in a bit.
Yeah, so starting with the Grand Prix at Austin, Texas, what did you think of that race in particular? Anything stand out to you at all as a notable moment?
Well, for one thing, the Ferraris looked really, really quick there. I did feel like FIA weren't, at the time, doing anything about incidents in particular. It looked like they were still being biased as always.
What incidents are you talking about?
Quite a few involving Max Verstappen and Lando Norris.
So you think the FIA is biased in favor of Verstappen?
I mean, ever since the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, we've all known that the FIA have some way of trying to support a driver over another.
I wouldn't say that myself. I don't think that they favor Max Verstappen. I think he has been the beneficiary of a few judgment calls in some cases, but looking back at earlier seasons, going back, prior to 2021, I think that he had a few incidents that I can think of. I don't remember exact races, but I know that there were a couple of calls that went against him that I thought were unfair as well. The penalty that Norris got, I think if you go by the letter of the law, which is what the stewards did, it was a fair penalty for Norris to get. I think by that same token, you could have canceled that out, so to speak, by giving Verstappen a penalty for forcing another driver off as well. But that's just my opinion. I think the rules are set up poorly because they basically tell a driver it's okay to just push another driver off the track as long as you're ahead of them at the apex, and it doesn't matter how you got ahead of them before the apex. You're allowed to just shove another driver off the track. And I prefer the way Kimi Räikkönen tended to race, or the way that Lewis Hamilton tends to race, which, for the most part, Lewis Hamilton's not innocent either, but for the most part, if there's a car next to him and they're reasonably alongside of him, even if they aren't necessarily ahead of him, they're going to give him space.
Yeah. And it was not just 3 races as well. It was also 2 sprints, both of which were decent sprints. I mean, they are much shorter than the race, but...
So we had a sprint at Austin, right? And
Yep.
a sprint at Sao Paulo. So I don't actually remember the sprint at Austin. What happened there?
So, sprint in Austin, Max Verstappen started on pole after a bit of a shocking sprint qualifying. Oscar Piastri, for the first time, had gotten eliminated in an SQ1 or a Q1 that season. He started 16th after his time was deleted for track limits. And then SQ2, Sergio Perez, shocking. Just another bad qualifying.
Yeah, that's going to be a bit of a theme, I think, throughout these 3 races, isn't it? So, yeah, Verstappen started on pole. He won the sprint race, correct? So it's aside from a different sprint, I think that's the only race. Well, he has not won a race, a Grand Prix, since Spain until Sao Paulo, correct?
Well, we'll get there.
Yeah, so the sprint race was the only race he had won I think he might have won one of the Austria sprints as well.
He
or
did
something
win
like
the
that.
Austria sprint, yes.
Yeah, so a long drought between wins for Verstappen, not something that we were expecting at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. Well, for the beginning of the year for the drought, yeah. I would totally agree with you, especially after Bahrain when they scored like perfect points, and it was very shocking apparently to feel that Verstappen had actually won a sprint. But he did quite well in the sprint, and then we approached the race, and Hamilton
Spun off on the second lap, didn't he?
He did, yeah. He had been having a bad weekend already, though.
He's had a pretty poor season. It's amazing that he's still ahead of Russell in the points.
Not anymore.
Oh, he's not anymore. Well, all the same, he's had I think he's had a couple of wins, but aside from that, he's had a pretty rotten season.
Yeah.
And last few races especially. So in the Grand Prix at Austin, we had was it Leclerc won, or was that Sainz?
Leclerc won with a very dominant race. I think he finished about 20 seconds ahead of Carlos Sainz for a 1-2 for Ferrari.
Was it that far? I didn't think that the gap was that big between Leclerc and Sainz. I thought it was like 6 or 7 seconds.
It might have been, but again, that was a couple of weeks ago.
Well, either way, yeah.
And he did it after making an amazing move from turn 1 to getting from 4th on the grid to the race lead after Norris started on pole position for the actual race at Austin. And I know a lot of people feel like Max Verstappen forced him off the track after starting P2, but a few of us, including myself, feel like Norris should have covered the inside a lot more than he did.
Norris did a poor job of covering off the inside. He went pretty far over to the left, but he still left a car's width on the inside, and you can't leave that kind of an opening for Verstappen, and he's going to take it. And I do think that Verstappen kind of pushed him off there, but I think that one was kind of okay. It actually reminded me a lot of Lewis Hamilton pushing Rosberg off. So that's why I say Hamilton's not innocent either. In 2016, I believe that was, or 2015, I don't remember. 2015, I think it was.
At the Red Bull Ring?
No, at Austin, in Texas. Where
yes.
Hamilton shoved Rosberg off. That was the race where
he won the
Hamilton
title.
Sealed the championship in that race. And yeah, he did exactly the same thing. Maybe not quite as aggressively because they weren't quite as far over to the left-hand side, I don't believe. But it was the same sort of move where Hamilton just didn't turn all the way into the corner, went out to the edge of the track, and Rosberg had nowhere to go as a result. And I don't like that kind of racing, and I don't like that it affected the race at Austin twice. And to a lesser degree, Verstappen, I shouldn't say to a lesser, he pulled the same move in Mexico, but he didn't get away with it there.
Yeah.
So a 1-2 for Ferrari at Austin.
And then I believe it was followed by
Verstappen ended up on in third because of Norris's penalty.
Yeah, so Norris dropped to 4th.
So in Mexico, though.
So qualifying, Sainz gets pole position, and then I believe it was Verstappen second.
So tell me about the start then at Mexico. How did that all unfold?
Perez had started in, I believe, 17th, and he had an amazing start. And then we see up on the screen a penalty for Sergio Perez for an incorrect starting position.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so he lined up too far forward in his grid box, and he ended up with a 10-second penalty for it.
Yeah, my gosh. He used to get podiums at this track, and now he's just getting penalties and crashes. And
last couple of years have not been good for Perez at Mexico.
No, it really has not.
What else happened on the first lap?
Yuki Tsunoda, Albon, and I think it was one of the Alpines had an incident into the first corner. Tsunoda got a bit airborne, not by much though. Knocked him out of the race. Albon went out of the race as well. And then Sainz tried to hold that position during all that chaos, and he had to go off the track, so he gained an advantage, so he let Verstappen by before, I believe it was a safety car, correct?
Right. Yep. So they had a safety car intervention, and all the cars bunched back up. Albon and Tsunoda were both okay. And then a few laps later, they went back to green flag racing, and Sainz stayed right with Verstappen. A couple of laps later, went for a move and made it stick.
Yep. Very late move as well, and it was very close to track limits. On the first couple turns, it was very quick save to make sure he stayed on the track. And then just a bit later, something major happened between Verstappen and Norris.
Yeah, so that was later in the same lap, I believe, right? Or was it the next lap?
I think it was the next lap.
So, okay, Norris and Verstappen battling into turn turn 4. And Norris gets a run on the outside and makes a move. And Verstappen not ahead at the apex. The stewards have ruled that they were side by side and that Norris had earned the right to space. Verstappen didn't give him any space. And so Norris continued through the grass, stayed ahead of Verstappen. They move on into turn 8, and Verstappen throws a lunge up the inside. They both go really far off track. Norris loses the position to Verstappen, but Leclerc got past both of them, right?
He did.
So you've got Sainz and Leclerc 1-2 again.
So it was looking really good for Ferrari in the past couple of races, and I think Norris was actually trying to give that position back at first because he was slowing down quite a bit and he was on the outside line. And then Verstappen tried to make a move that nobody's ever made before at that turn.
Yeah. I don't buy for a second that Norris was trying to let him by. I think that Verstappen just took a lunge. I think Verstappen knew exactly who his title rival was, and he was going to do whatever it took to make sure to minimize Norris's points.
Yeah. In the end, 2 10-second time penalties for Max Verstappen.
Yeah, and he wasn't happy about either of them. I have to say, I think they're both fully deserved.
Oh, definitely.
And I know that there was some discussion after the race about why did he get a 10-second penalty when Norris only got a 5-second penalty at Austin. But if you read the steward's decision, they kind of spell that out, that in Austin, Norris passed on the outside, passed off track and gained a lasting advantage. But they also said that at the time that he went off track, he had no choice but to go off track.
And that's 100% true.
And so in that instance, they basically said, yeah, it's a 5-second penalty because there was nothing he could do about it. He was going to go off track no matter what. What he should have done is given the place back, and then he would have avoided the penalty altogether. But Verstappen's 10-second penalty for turn 4 at Mexico, there was nothing preventing Verstappen from being able to stay on track himself. He did stay on track. He just pushed Norris off. They basically ruled it was deliberate, or that he made no attempt to allow Norris to stay on track. And then fast forward to turn 8, and it's kind of the same thing. He went wide. He gained a lasting advantage. There was no extenuating circumstances to minimize it to a 5-second penalty. The standard penalty as of this year is a 10-second penalty. The only reason it was 5 for Norris is because there were extra circumstances that led to the penalty, basically.
Yeah.
So I think both 10-second penalties were fair. Actually, I don't think either of them were fair. I think. Okay, I'm going to go off here a little bit about penalties with the FIA and with Formula One. Penalties in Formula One, I think, are far too lenient. 5-second penalty for going off track and gaining a lasting advantage, or even if it's 10 seconds. If you go off track on a track that has gravel traps or has a wall on the outside, you're done. Your race is over at that point. A 10-second penalty isn't much of a penalty, given the circumstances could be far worse. And if you look at other forms of motorsport that issue penalties, time penalties for them are typically a stop and wait 2 minutes kind of penalty or something like that. Maybe not quite that drastic, but I can certainly remember sports car races at Road America, close to where we live, where a driver's given a 1 minute stop and go penalty because of something that they did, pit lane infringement or something like that. I think the penalties should be far more harsh than they are now, and then you don't have these kinds of problems. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and it also doesn't help when Max Verstappen had actually not given the place back after the second incident, and he went and gained quite a bit of time. It
stopped Norris winning the race. Norris would have won the race in São Paulo.
Well,
in my opinion, he would have won the race in Mexico. He would have won that race had Verstappen not forced him off track at turn 8. The incident at turn 4, yeah, okay, fine. He could have, he lost a bit of time to Sainz on that, but he lost a position. He lost 2 positions at turn 8. He lost the position to Leclerc and he lost the position to Verstappen. And then Verstappen held him up for however many laps, 20 laps, whatever it was, until the first pit stop. After the pit stops and after Verstappen was out of Norris's way, he gained a ton of time on Leclerc, eventually forced Leclerc into an error, which, I mean, granted, that was also because Leclerc's tires had gone. But then he was not running down Sainz massively, but he got to within about 5 seconds, I think, by the end of the race, where he had been, I think, 15 seconds behind him before the pit stops. And that was entirely because he got delayed by Verstappen, who was not on the Ferrari's pace. And had Norris kept the position at turn 8, he would have only been 3-4 seconds behind Sainz at that point, and I think he would have had the pace to catch Sainz and pass him in the remaining 45, 50 laps, whatever it was. I think Verstappen knew what he was doing. He intentionally tried to minimize Norris's points, and it worked.
Well, I still don't think Norris should have won that race anyways. I'll get to that in a moment.
Should have or could have?
I don't think he should have.
Okay.
But near the end of the race, Leclerc, he was chasing Leclerc for second place, and Leclerc actually nearly had a big shunt.
It was a big save coming out of the last corner. He was lucky not to be in the wall.
A couple different live streams had been talking about how Leclerc's worst enemy is the final corner at a track. I can definitely agree with that, because if you look back at like Italy at the Parabolica or Germany in 2019, didn't he have
a big crash on the last corner? Maybe it was a couple corners before the last corner in France a few years ago.
I think that's one as well.
While leading, I think
that's one as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah, Leclerc needs there to be one more corner on every lap.
Well, then he'd crash at that corner, though. So.
Well, but if the corner, if he's endlessly not quite at the last corner, he doesn't crash.
It needs to be like that one track in the Isle of Man where it doesn't have any corners. It's just a big straight.
Yeah, that's a wild circuit, a wild race, the Isle of Man TT.
Yeah, because then you wouldn't have a final corner to start another lap.
Yeah. Well, that's motorcycle racing, though. We're not going to talk about that.
Yeah. But Sainz wins the race. That's why I think Norris should not have won it. I think that's going to be Sainz's last victory.
It could well be. We'll see. There's still three races left this season. I don't think he'll be in the hunt for wins at Williams next year. But beyond next year, you never know where he ends up. He might still be at Williams, or he might have a return to Red Bull. He's still young enough that he still has opportunities ahead of him. Potentially has opportunities ahead of him.
Yeah. And then we come to one of the greatest races, perhaps, of the decade. I compare this to one of the best previously, which would have been the 2022 British Grand Prix. I'm not even kidding. Even though that was Sainz's first victory, I still think that the 2024 Sao Paulo Grand Prix was better.
Yeah, it was a frustrating race for me to watch, and partly because of being a McLaren fan, but partly because I just think that all of the drivers, except for Verstappen, disappointed me. Verstappen was great. He did amazing in the wet, and he's
the rain
arguably
master.
the best wet weather driver there has ever been. I know there are other candidates. Senna is one of them. Schumacher is another one. But he's done it time and time again. And at Sao Paulo, he's done it time and time again, where he's just fast in the wet weather. The thing for me that was frustrating was that guys that are normally good in the rain weren't, like Norris,
like
and
Norris,
Hamilton,
and Russell, and Hamilton. Yeah,
Russell's not that good in the rain. He did better in the rain than I had expected him to be.
I was about to tell you, really, Hamilton?
Hamilton's really good in the past. He's always been really good in the wet and good at Sao Paulo. I think back to the 2008 British Grand Prix in the rain, where Hamilton was absolutely dominant. And I put Verstappen's drive up there on the same level as that race. I think that race, probably better than that race, to be honest, but because Verstappen was coming from the back and had to go through the field. That's also part of the frustration for me, though, is that there's a lot of talk of, well, it's 17th to first, and that's an amazing drive, and Norris said he was lucky. I don't think he was lucky. I think you create your own luck.
Yeah, that's a bit of a sore loser sort of moment.
I mean, kind of. I get his point. There was some luck involved, if you want to call it that. But I don't believe in luck myself. I think that's not the right way to look at it.
Don't you have
because it goes around and it comes around. Verstappen got lucky this time. Other times he's going to get unlucky. And Norris fell apart in that race. He went off track a couple times. He couldn't get past Russell after he lost the lead on the start again. He had to be given a position by Piastri after having been given a position the day before in the sprint race. I just think Norris had a poor race. But at the same time, Verstappen's 17th to first, I think, is slightly downgraded in my book by the fact that he couldn't get past the gaggle of third, fourth, fifth, sixth cars, whatever it was. But I think it was Leclerc and a couple of Alpines, and he was at the end of that line. After he had made it 17th up to, I think, 6th, he couldn't progress any further because they were all stuck in a train behind each other. The weird start that was caused by Lance Stroll being Lance Stroll.
Oh, my days. Oh, man.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about Stroll. Such a waste of a seat.
He had just gotten his car repaired after the qualifying crash, and then he crashes it on the formation lap. That's 2 in a year on that formation lap.
So the formation lap crash, I can forgive him for that because, you snatch a brake, that happens. And in the wet, okay, sometimes that happens too. It happened to Albon during qualifying, the exact same sort of thing where he hit the brake, locked the rears, and off he went. The damage to his car was minimal. He could have pit and gotten a new wing, and he would have been fine.
The part I can't forgive him for, though, was moments later.
Yeah, so then he gets the car going, and he just decides, I'm going to drive through the gravel because that's easy to do, and then he gets stuck.
Oh, I'm beached.
Yeah, just ridiculous.
There's a runoff area that he was literally right by as well. It would have been easier to go right there. He could have
driven... the way I think that the track is formed is there's a concrete or a hard surface barrier around the gravel trap on the outside of it. So he could have just gone straight forward and then turned down that and gotten back on track.
But instead he had to go even farther and then go onto the gravel.
It was bad. But the less said about that, the better, I think.
I think this is the worst performance we've ever seen from Stroll.
So that kind of gets back to the point I was making about I was actually kind of disappointed in the race. It was a great, exciting event, but I was disappointed by the lack of quality of some of the drives. The Alpines did fantastic to maintain second and third after the restart, and to get a double podium for them. I'm very disappointed that they jumped up to sixth place in the standings, because
I am too.
I wanted to see Haas and
I did too.
RB fighting for that, which I guess that battle's not over.
Well, I mean,
yet,
that's not over. It's still not. Well, now it's a three-way battle, but it also means that Williams are ninth again, and
Williams
I'm not
are
happy
ninth
about
again,
that.
Well, they were never going to get above eighth from where they were, unless they had a crazy race like Alpine had. But yeah, I mean, Hamilton couldn't seem to make any progress. Norris couldn't get past Russell.
And the reason
Verstappen couldn't get past that gaggle of cars initially. It took him a while, and then the red flag helped him with that. And Stroll went off and went into the gravel. Sainz crashed. Colapinto crashed.
had a big crash.
Yeah, I just feel like the quality of the drive, and I know it's tricky conditions.
Yeah, but
and you're gonna have some incidents, but it just seemed like that for a wet race there were a lot of bigger incidents and more high-profile drivers that had incidents. So I was slightly disappointed that way.
There was also Behrman, who had a tiny little crash from the wet conditions, and the most shocking part was Nico Hülkenberg's weekend. He had
Hülkenberg, another one that I would have expected to do better.
A DNF in the sprint, a DSQ in the race.
Yeah, the disqualification.
Atrocious.
He went off track on his own and got he high-watered it, as I call it, and where he didn't get stuck in a gravel track. He got stuck on a weird.
Like a lifted concrete. Where
the concrete just changes shape there, and it caught the bottom of his car. He got disqualified because the marshals helped to push him off, and he continued on. Yeah, it was a bizarre race. It was exciting. I enjoyed it, and didn't enjoy it because McLaren did so poorly. But and the other part that's disappointing with it is that now the championship is effectively over.
It's going to be over. There's
at least
no
the drivers'
more.
championship.
Yeah, the drivers' championship is done, guys. A lot of people have been saying it. We're saying it as well. It's done. Verstappen will win.
Norris still has a chance.
He does,
but
it's
he
like,
doesn't actually.
I think it's like 65 points in 3 races. He has to win 2 with Verstappen to DNF, and he has to get a podium in
He'd
another.
have to outscore him like 20 points each race.
And that's nearly impossible.
Yeah, So we'll move on to predictions, which we haven't been making any because we haven't been recording. Let's just say what we think our predictions will be for the next race then, which is
Las Vegas.
Las Vegas, back in America again.
It is indeed. Well, obviously it's not going to rain in Vegas. It's humid there.
Very unlikely.
Yeah. But I feel like Leclerc is going to have quite the masterclass. I think it's going to be very similar to last year's results, actually. And I think Verstappen will get P2 and seal the championship. And P3, I think, is going to go to Carlos Sainz.
And I think that the Red Bull has been, aside from the wet race, has been struggling lately. And I don't think that that's going to improve anymore by the end of the season. I think Ferraris have been pretty strong the last few weeks, not necessarily as much in the wet. I think that Piastri, having given up the sprint win at Sao Paulo and giving a position back to Norris, I think he's going to be on fire at Vegas. I think he's going to be pretty hard to stop, and I'm going to say he'll be P1, Norris will be off the podium. I think Piastri will be on a tear for Las Vegas. I think Norris will be struggling. Yeah. I just think it's that kind of recovery effect where he'll struggle a little bit. I think it's going to be a Piastri, and then probably the 2 Ferraris. I don't know what order, so I'll say Leclerc, Sainz. Piastri, Leclerc, Sainz.
Piastri, Leclerc, Sainz. Nice.
Yeah.
All right, so
that does it for our triple header roundup.